Hi everyone, my name is Chris Ross and I am an art collector of self-taught folk and outsider artists. I'm excited to share with you some of the artists and their artwork that I have acquired over the last 10 years. When I started to collect, I used different books, magazines, and even watched auctions to learn more about artists. Sometimes another collector would suggest an artist for me to check out. There are numerous art galleries and museums that I follow that specialize in self-taught folk and outsider artists. The High Museum in Atlanta has almost 2,000 pieces uploaded on their website from folk and self-taught artists that I reference all the time. Here are a few of my favorite artists that I've been collecting. Jake McCord, Butch Anthony, Purvis Young, Anthony Joseph Salvador, Reverend Anderson Johnson, S.L. Jones, Mr. John Henry Toney, Mark Anthony Mulligan, Reverend Albert Wagner, and Z.B. Armstrong, to name a few. A number of terms are used to describe particular types of categories of folk art: outsider art, self-taught art, contemporary folk art, visionary art, environmental art, and art brut. Jake McCord was from Thompson, Georgia, where he worked for 39 years as a groundkeeper. McCord first began creating art around 1984 after seeing a group of women taking a painting class at Haas Paint Store near his home. He always asserted that his artwork was just for fun and that his paintings kept him company. Some of his favorite subject matters were houses, clocks, animals, and women with big hairdos. Once Jake finished a painting, he would showcase them in his front window, nailed to a post in the yard, or on his front porch. McCord was adamant about how long a piece needed to stay on display before he would allow anyone to purchase it. Jake mentioned that 3 weeks was a showcase period and that it was important for people passing by to have time to admire his paintings. Sadly, health problems brought Jake into retirement from his city job in 2007, and he passed in 2009. The house on Railroad Street was demolished to make room for a new county courthouse. The local museum rushed in to salvage the porch, and it will be used to display Jake's artwork and as a venue for local artists. While watching Live Auctioneer, I seen that Ledbetter Auction in North Carolina had 5 paintings by Jake coming up for sale. I decided to bid on The Woman in the Green Suit without ever seeing one of Jake's works in person. The painting stuck out to me from the piercing blue eyes to the bright white hair and shimmering green outfit she has on. To my surprise, I won the painting, and I immediately started to search out galleries that might have his work for sale. There were a few galleries that had examples of Jake's works for sale, but they were too similar to what I had just purchased. I then found a gallery in Georgia that had around 20 paintings available, and I ended up purchasing 2 of them. I selected the one on the left because it reminded me of a Mona Lisa-like figure, straight-faced and elegant, while the one on the right was jolly and was the only one available that had a figure on a bike. During the next year and a half, I would acquire another 26 works by Jake. These works varied from animals, houses, barns, clocks, and his jolly figures. When selecting these paintings for purchase, I wanted to add a variety of sizes and a few animals to what I already owned. The next batch of paintings I purchased, I didn't realize that 2 pieces were double-sided. It was a pleasant surprise to see this, and I often wonder why Jake painted on both sides of some paintings and not on others. Maybe he liked to give a buyer 2 for the price of 1. As I talk to more collectors and gallery owners, hopefully someone might know more information on this. As I continued to acquire more paintings, I was fortunate enough to find a private collector that had Jake's works for sale. Here are a group of paintings I purchased from that collector. I was excited to see the variation in sizes and subject matter he had for sale. When purchasing paintings from private collectors, you gain access to their archives. This is one of the earliest photos of Jake I have seen dating back to 1986. McCord proudly sits and displays his artwork in front of the former Scott's Cafe. Jake purchased the building and turned it into his house. As I continue to collect more of Jake's work, I've sought out to buy early examples from the 1980s. Most of his works were painted on found wood or on canvases that his neighbors would buy for him. One of my favorite things to do while collecting art is finding pictures of the artist with a piece I own. I discovered this photograph of Jake on the back of a painting that sold at auction in 2011. Jake was featured in a show in 1992 called Art from the Heart at the Beach Institute of Savannah. This year, I was excited to add 3 additional works by Jake into my collection. Santa and Miss Claus and the couple on a motorcycle are the only 2 paintings that I own that have multiple figures in them, while the lady in the lab coat is another playful example of Jake's work. Butch Anthony is a contemporary self-taught artist and collector of objects and antiques. He grew up on his family's 80-acre property in Seal, Alabama, where he lives and works today in a home he built by hand. He is the creator of the Museum of Wonder, the world's first drive-through museum, and the Possum Trot. Butch was the first self-taught artist I collected. His art stood out to me from his unique approach to altering antique charcoal portraits, a style which he calls intertwangalism, an ism of his own creation. Butch explains, inter means the mix, twangle is a distinct way of speaking, and ism is a theory. If I make up my own ism, no one can tell me I'm doing something wrong. When I started to acquire artwork from Butch, there are two different ways to go about it. I will pick something he has for sale on his website, or I will send him a blank charcoal portrait for him to paint on top of. Here are a couple examples that I sent down to him and didn't know the finished piece until it was sent back to me. As I look back on these pictures, I realized that purchasing a piece from Butch without ever seeing it was a lot of fun, and that I should try it more with other artists. Over the years, I've traveled to Butch's to acquire new artwork and to archive articles and photographs he had stored away since 1994 and were in need of preservation. I've also curated an exhibition of his work in 2014 that featured his intertwangalism portraits and his recombobulated sculptures. As Butch's art became more popular, collectors would show up to his property unannounced. This prompted Butch to come up a way for people to see his art without interrupting his time in the studio. He created the world's first drive-through museum for people to see his art without ever getting out of their cars. In 2016, Butch made a trip to see Leon Russell to trade him some of his artwork for his Cadillac, which he still drives today with some added decorations. I always get asked, where do you put all the art you collect? For me, living with art is as exciting as collecting it. I rotate artwork in my house multiple times a year, transforming each room into a gallery-like setting. I also have a guest room that I fill with one artist for family and friends to enjoy when they spend a night. Here is a room filled with around 25 Butch Anthonys, and when I switched them out for Jake McCord's artwork. During one of my visits to Butch's place, I met another self-taught artist, Mr. John Henry Toney. John Henry's art career started in 1994 when he was 66 years old. While plowing Butch's field, he dug up a turnip that had a face on it, so he took it home and drew it. The next day, Butch put the drawing in a local antique shop and it sold. Suddenly, Toney's career as an artist was born. John Henry draws with marker-on poster board, and his subject matter feature animals, vehicles, Bible scenes, and his fancy ladies. He often includes personal information like his age, phone number, and occasionally there will be a title and what number piece he created on the back. You could have found John Henry at his office, the White Spot grocery store. There he sets up artwork for sale and draws everyday life. I own around a dozen drawings, and I was fortunate enough to add these two pieces from a private collector in Alabama. When I purchased John Henry's art, I favor his vertical pieces and his drawings that have multiple people in them. S.L. Jones worked for the railroad for over 50 years. Upon his retirement, he took up carving figures and animals from poplar, walnut, and maple he gathered in the woods. When completed, Jones would use an opaque paint to embellish his sculptures. Following a stroke in the 90s, he was unable to carve anymore and turned to drawing. I started collecting S.L. Jones drawings from them being so whimsical. I enjoy how the drawings documented his cherished traditions from his own life, including music, hunting, farming, and gatherings. Majority of these drawings are larger examples of S.L.'s work at 18 by 24. I haven't seen a drawing by S.L. I didn't like, and I look forward to buying many more of them in the future. When talking to other collectors, you learn about new artists. Mark Anthony Mulligan was one of those artists a collector friend in Chicago told me about in 2019. Mark is from Louisville, Kentucky, and struggled with mental illness and has been off and on homeless for the last 20 years. He creates vibrant streetscapes and maps during his trips through the city. He was also featured in the 2017 documentary Peaceland, available on YouTube. I was fortunate enough to purchase a few drawings from Swanson Contemporary before the gallery closed after 37 years in business. Here are a few examples from my collection. I am fond of how Mark used the entire page to create these pieces. When I look at them, my eyes wander endlessly. In some drawings, he signs the pieces 2 or 3 times. Unfortunately, Mark passed away in 2022 at the age of 59 after his battle with COVID-19. I became interested in Purvis Young's work after seeing an exhibition at the Rubell Museum in 2018. Purvis was from the Overtown neighborhood in Miami, Florida. Self-taught, Young's work often blends painting and drawings with collaged elements using everyday discarded objects. The exhibition featured hundreds of Purvis's work and was broken down to the following sections: pregnant women, slaves, boat people, faces, eyes, bugs, prison, drugs, horses, protesters, warriors, funeral, holy men, angels, planet, and stars. Here are 3 examples of Purvis's work in my collection. As I collect his work, I would like to get an example of each of his themes. I am drawn to a few things when buying his art. I like the piece to be signed. Purvis didn't sign everything. To have a handmade frame and to have a good provenance. I've also purchased art from organizations like Project Onward in Chicago. Since 2004, Project Onward has become a leader in the field of disability art for its innovative blend of accuracy, artistic excellence, and social engagement. While browsing their website, I came across Adam Hines' artwork and had to add it to my collection. Adam Hines is a founding member of Project Onward, a prolific artist who has created over 10,000 individual pieces. Hines depicts in color pencil and marker what he coined the World Tour, an extensive listing of people, places, and animals. I was drawn to Adam's art from his attention to detail and use of color. Looking at one of his Chicago scenes brings back memories of a past vacation. As I continued to watch art auctions, I came across an amazing artist named Artist Chucky. Some other names he goes by are Chucky Williams, Painter Chucky, Psychic Talent, Christ True Genius, and Ghost Talent. Artist Chucky's first art show was actually in his front yard in 1990 when a building near his house was on fire and a fireman asked him to evacuate. His reply to the fireman was that he had millions of dollars worth of paintings inside, so they responded with helping him haul the paintings outside, which caught the attention of a reporter. Artist Chucky uses found materials to create double-sided portraits on plywood and cardboard. His paintings have bold colors, often with glitter on the larger pieces. The pop culture references of celebrities, talk show hosts, and sports figures attracted me to his work. Like Purvis Young, I wanted to have examples of Artist Chucky's work that had multiple signatures on the front or back. Here are a few close-ups of the Anita Baker painting. Chucky signed this piece 3 times with Artist Chucky, Christ True Genius Painter, and Painter Chucky. He also added glitter throughout her dress. To my surprise, the Michael Jackson painting had even more signatures on it, and the date it was completed, September 12, 1992. He signed this painting 6 times with Artist Chucky Williams, Psychic Talent Chucky, Special Christ Talent, CW 1992, Painter Chucky, and Artist Chuck. As my collection continues to grow, here are a few other artists I have added to it. Reverend Anderson Johnson, W.D. Hardin, Z.B. Armstrong, Reverend Albert Wagner, and Anthony Joseph Salvador. Thank you for letting me share my collecting journey with you.